So my grandmother, Isabel Hinton, was an amazing woman. She lived to 110 years old. She, uh, she never really worked outside the home, but she was one of the ladies that really took care of the family. And I was fortunate enough, my mom and dad, instead of just paying for childcare during the summer, we just spent our summers with her. And so my sister and I kind of had my grandmother Isabel to ourselves. And I will never forget, she taught me how to wash, she taught me how to cook, she taught me how to clean, but she taught me how to just care and care for myself and care for others. And so I was very fortunate enough to have her in my life. And when I had my son, I knew that I had to get a picture of them because at the time they were 103 years apart from each other. She lived to 110, and I have the cutest picture of them. They're sitting at a table, and Markel was probably about 3 years old or so, maybe 3 or 4. And he's standing up at the table and he's looking at her and she's looking at him. But what is funny about that picture is that Markel grew up loving Blue's Clues. And so my grandmother had on the Blue's Clues bib at the time. And so it's funny because it kind of looks backwards, but they are looking at each other like they are having this intense conversation. And I thought that is just one of the most beautiful memories. And I don't take those for granted because you can't get those back. But she taught me so much. I had another grandmother, Grandmother Thelma. She was Native American and she delivered babies all over North Carolina, from the mountains to the coast. I remember when she got older in age, she decided that she wanted to just have her own farm. She was married. My grandfather had his farm. My grandmother had her farm. And she made enough money that she built her house and she wanted to open up a home for, I guess what we would call it this day and time, kind of a group home. But what was funny was that she made more money than my grandfather did. And I remember my dad telling me that she told him, she says, Shep, you can stay here on this farm if you want to, but I'm going to move over here and you can come with me and it's okay, but just know I'm going. And she did, and she was successful. And everybody in the community knew her. I remember growing up and we would go visit with her on Saturdays, and she would do her grocery shopping on Saturdays. So my grandmother, which was her daughter, would come and pick us up, and we would go with her on Saturdays to the grocery store. And I remember being like 8 or 9 years old and just being amazed that when she went grocery shopping, and I couldn't put it together then, but she was shopping, she was doing the grocery shopping for her facility, for the home that she had. And so to walk around with 4 carts of grocery in just a regular grocery store was like amazing. And I would be so impressed. I was like, yeah, we went to the grocery store and my grandmother bought 4 carts of food. And people were just looking at me like I was crazy. And I was like, oh, she's just amazing. I learned so much. She farmed even when she had her home. So I could go down there on Saturdays and we'd be out in the chicken coop. She had chickens that laid green eggs and pink eggs, and I would come back and tell my friends about them, and they didn't believe me. And so I just have a ton of awesome family members, but also just a ton of experiences that I'm really just thankful for, because a lot of people don't get that opportunity. I had 4 living great-grandparents, great-grandmothers, and I got to spend time with them.
And how have those experiences informed or inspired what you're doing today?
Well, it was interesting. Back about 4 years ago, when I realized that I wasn't really taking care of myself and I thought I was, when I had an opportunity to write a chapter in a book. And I had just learned about mindfulness, and I don't think I had really, I always used the term, oh, you need to be mindful of this, you need to be mindful of that, but I never really understood what mindfulness was. And I knew that my experience with my grandmothers was very important, and that's really, why I'm the way I am today. And when I went back and looked at what they imparted in me, I looked back and I saw where I could see the 7 attitudes of mindfulness in each and every one of them. and the patience, the non-judging, the non-striving. I could see where they taught all of that to me. I didn't know that they were teaching me that at the time. And I don't even think they knew what mindfulness, I don't know if mindfulness was even around at that time, but I saw it 4 years ago. And that's why it really sticks close to home with me. You know, if I don't do anything else, I always share with people the 7 attitudes of mindfulness because it has made a difference in my life. And it's an easy place to start, and it's a gentle place to start. So, yeah.
Can you talk about one of those attitudes and how you saw that demonstrated in one of your grandmothers and how you present that today?
Patience is the one that I think I'm always tested on. And so I remember my grandmother Arvella, which Arvella was the daughter of Isabel. And so when I would be around my grandmother Arvella, I noticed that nothing ever really shook her. She was never in a rush for anything, and she was always fully in the present moment. If you came to her and if she was peeling potatoes, she stopped and she took time. My mother would say, you know, you need to hurry up, Mom, or, you know, whatever. And she's like, they'll be there when I get there. And when I get there, it'll be okay. But she was just very patient, and she was never in a rush for anything. And that's what I remember the most about her. You know, when it comes to non-judging, I see that in my mother-in-law. And so not only was I fortunate enough to have these ladies in my life growing up, I also have an awesome mother-in-law, and her name is Mamie. And for Mamie and my mom, Dorothy, they taught me about just non-striving. Just, you know, not trying to go anywhere faster than what you need to, letting things allow, and just being fully present. And so I could see that. I had what I would call, I'm not going to call it I'm not going to call it a traumatic pregnancy, but I had a very interesting pregnancy. So I was on bed rest for 5 months. And that taught me patience. That really taught me patience. But I think when my mother-in-law came in, I was really in that striving mode, and I had to figure out how to slow down. And when I wrote the book a couple of years ago, I realized that the striving, I really did learn that lesson with my mother and my mother-in-law while I was pregnant.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you.